Hey, what is up guys, and welcome for my first build for Diablo 4. What we are looking at today is an insane Earth Shatter build. It has such great crowd control and the damage is absolutely crazy. One of the best at the early level 50 to level 70 by far. I have seen many pulverized builds for the Druid, but I really feel that the Landslide paired with the Wearbear is even more powerful. You can see that I can easily hit numbers in the tens of thousands. I was even able to hit up to 70 to 80k damage without any effort. The build has tremendous potential, especially once I get my Paragon Board filled up even more. This build would definitely hit the hundreds and thousands of damage. Plus the cooldowns, especially early on in your leveling, getting these cooldowns is very essential. If you don't have any sort of regenerating spirit, getting faster cooldowns is a lot more important than just getting pure damage. And this build has both. You can get insanely fast cooldowns and the damage is just as powerful. Also, this build is super fun to play with, as our main trample skill sends out so many landslides that you can take out all those trash mobs like it's nothing. Landslide is in my opinion the strongest skill than pulverize, at least in the earlier stages of your leveling. Even in the single target damage against elites and bosses is better. With the trample releasing so many landslides, all those bonuses that you would get with the original landslide skill will act all the same way with the landslides that a trample creates, which is why it's so strong. Dungeon runs are an absolute breeze. It is also very nicely balanced, as in your damage as well as your survivability. You have great healing constantly and it will mostly always be fortified, so you'll get that bonus damage reduction which will make you even tankier. I have still yet to get good rolls on all my gear, and this build is still able to do all that content in the game at World Tier 3 and even the hard nightmare dungeons without any hassle. As you're getting better and better stuff and get more access to legendaries and even uniques, this build will be even better. There's quite a lot to go over for this build and quite a few things to look at for new players as well, so let's get right into it. Firstly, let's start off with our skills. Now, starting from the top with our basic attack, we get Storm Strike. This is still probably the best basic skill to have, as you will receive 25% damage reduction for 3 seconds whenever you use this attack. Then we also get Enhanced Storm Strike to get 15% chance to immobilize for a short duration, which actually procs very often even though it's just 15%. Then we have the Fierce Storm Strike, which is amazing as you get 50% chance to inflict vulnerable on the enemies. This basic skill is actually really important and you'll see why when we look at the other main skills. Next to our core skills, Landslide is going to be our main damage dealer for this build. Getting as many points as you can on the skill and then branch off to get the enhanced landslide, so every time a landslide hits an enemy 4 times, they will get immobilized. With how many landslides we proc at once, and all the landslides we do get summoned twice thanks to some of our legendary aspects, we will be immobilizing enemies very often. Then we go and get the primal version, which is whenever you immobilize or stun an enemy, we will get a Terror Mode charge, which then each enemy that is hit by the landslide afterwards will consume a charge, which will guarantee a critical strike that will deal 40% increased damage. This is an important skill as this automatically guarantees a critical hit whenever you can immobilize or stun enemies. The landslide itself will immobilize enemies. Then, as you remember, our basic skill Storm Strike also has a chance to immobilize enemies. Every attack we do has a chance to immobilize, so we will always be getting the Terror Mode charges and getting guaranteed critical hits. Plus, bosses just flat out have a 10% chance to give a free Terror Mode charge on any hit, which is even better. Some other points you can add in this section are the Predatory Instinct to get bonus crit chance against close range enemies. We will always be in close range, so this will benefit us greatly. We get just 1 point in Iron Fur just for a little bit of damage reduction while we are in Wearbear form. We get just 1 point in Heart of the Wild, so we can go in and get Wild Impulses. This will increase the cost of our landslide but increases damage by 15%. That flat out 15% damage increase is amazing. Then now for our defensive skills, we get Earthen Bulwark, and this is probably the best skill to keep us alive, as it will generate a barrier that will absorb a certain amount of damage for a short duration. Then we also get the enhanced version to make us unstoppable while it's active, so we don't get stunned or any crowd control effects applied to us. Then we get the Innate Bulwark just so we can use this skill as some form of damage as well. If you want more survivability, then go on for the other version, which will give us more Fortify. We then get the Debilitating Roar. This straight up reduces all damage dealt from nearby enemies by a whopping 70% for 4 seconds. This is really huge in terms of its survivability. We also get the enhanced version so it can fortify us for 22% of our base life. Then we get the innate version that should slow all surrounding enemies by 65%. This just goes very well as you can get bonus damage from our skills to crowd control enemies, and this is one way to easily inflict slow to everything around you. Now we don't get any companions for this build, so we move straight on to our wrath skills. Our main one is going to be the trample, which makes you charge forward while being unstoppable and dealing fairly good damage. Enemies who get knocked back will also get stunned, which is good. Then we also get the enhanced trample, so we deal 150% bonus damage to the first enemy we hit, and then only a 50% bonus to all the remaining enemies that we strike. Then we end up with the skill the savage trample, so we get 20 spirit whenever we use this move. We don't need to put too many points into the skill, as the main damage dealer is still going to be the landslides that the trample will create and not the trample itself. Another skill we get is the boulder. This will act as our ranged attack and also somewhat like a get off me tool. If you find yourself surrounded or see many enemies charging at you, the boulder will literally push everything away from you. Plus this skill only has a 10-second cooldown. Then we get the enhanced version so we can inflict slow onto enemies at the end of the skill, or stun them if the boulder was overpowered. Then also the natural boulder skill, which will increase our crit chance by 20% if we have fortify, which is going to be most of the time anyways. Since our gear and our aspects turn the trample into an earth skill, as well as the landslides and boulder are all earth skills, we get some more points in this area with crushing earth, which makes all of our earth skills deal more damage to basically crowd control enemies, which is slow, immobilized, stunned or knocked back. Also we get stone guard. While you have 50% fortify, you get bonus damage on your earth skills. You can also go more in safeguard if you are not getting enough fortify from your gear and skills, but just 1 point in safeguard should be more than enough. We then also get mending, so we get increased healing from all sources by 5% while in Wearbear form. We get this skill so we can use the provocation. When you remain in the Wearbear form for at least 25 seconds, your next skill will overpower. So mostly every 25 or so seconds, your skill will overpower and do a lot more damage. We don't need any ultimate for this build, but we do get some points in other aspects over here. We get Defiance, so we get bonus damage to elites with our nature magic skills. All of our skills are nature magic, so this will proc all the time when we fight the big guys. Then Natural Disaster, this will increase the damage of our earth skills against vulnerable enemies, and the damage of our storm skills against stunned, immobilized or knocked back enemies. Our basic attack is able to proc the vulnerable status, so this is very useful. Then we have Resonance. Nature magic skills deal 6% bonus damage, and this bonus is tripled if an earth skill is cast after a storm skill and vice versa. We can easily get this bonus if we keep using our basic attack and then our landslide. We'll be using our basic attacks to get our spirit back anyway, so this is a no-brainer. Then we also get quick shift. Whenever we change forms, we will deal extra 15% damage. Then just 1 point into hardened senses, so we get bonus damage reduction against elites whenever we change Wearbear form for 5 seconds. Then finally, as for our keys passive, this is the reason we get such fast cooldowns and we're able to spam our trample, boulder, earth and bulwark and have them active almost all the time. We use the Nature's Fury. Casting an earth skill has a 20% chance to trigger a free storm skill of the same category, and the same goes for the storm skills, as it has 20% chance to cast a free earth skill of the same category. This goes for every skill you have. Your basic skill has a chance to cast the earth spike. Your core skills can cast the lightning storm or the tornado. Your bulwark can cast the cyclone armor, and then boulder and trample can cast the hurricane. Also, the landslides that the trample creates are also able to cast a free tornado or a lightning storm. This passive alone doesn't give us cooldowns on our skills, but an aspect that we are using, which we will look at in a bit. As for our Paragon Board, I'm still only level 59, but here's what I have so far. We move our way up from the right side and get that bonus damage. And for our first glyph, we add in Shapeshifter. I feel like this is the best glyph to use early on, and I feel people are sleeping on this glyph. Shapeshifting has a 20% chance to cause the skill to automatically critically strike. We shapeshift for literally all of our skills except for our basic attack. This is best way to guarantee critical strikes. This is how you can see I'm getting so many crits all the time. Plus when you get overpowered damage, these crits are even more stronger. Then I have attached the Earth's board that gives us more earth damage and more damage to crowd control enemies. So make sure you rotate the board and get this first node that gives you bonus damage to crowd control enemies and crit damage as well. Then I'm just going to keep moving up and as soon get that second glyph socket. That is all I have for the Paragon board right now, so let's quickly go over the spirit boons. For the deer spirit, you can either go for the max spirit or 10% reduced damage from elites. For the eagle, I've used a double bonus and I've gotten 10% attack speed and 30% crit damage bonus. For my wolf, we get that energize as it gives us some chance to regenerate our spirit on any hit. Then finally for our snake, we have critical strikes with our shapeshifting skills, heal us for 3% of our max life. This is the main healing source for this build. We always shapeshifting for our skills, so with this any crit that we get will be giving us lots of healing. This is basically all we have for our skills. And now for the full look at our gear, and mostly all my gear doesn't have the best stats, but it's still great. But let's go over what I used. Only one gear that I used is a unique, and that aspect is that your earth skills are now also Wearbear skills and they also fortify you. This aspect is not super important and it doesn't increase your damage or anything major. The only real reason why you use this skill is for that spirit burn that I just mentioned that gives us healing on shapeshifting skills. If you don't have this, your damage may not suffer that much, but your healing may fall a bit. Then on our chest piece I have the aspect, when you have fortify, your earth skills will get +2 ranks. This is an easy way to get bonus on your earth and bulwark, and your landslides, trample and your boulder. For my gloves, I have the aspect that makes your earth skills inflict slow on the enemies. This is super important and this is what applies those crowd control effects with your skills. On my pants, I have the increased duration to earth and bulwark by an additional 6 seconds. And also, killing enemies with earth skills will replenish the barrier, which is great. Now for our main and important aspect for this build. When the Nature's Fury passive triggers a free skill, your non-ultimate skills of the opposite type will get reduced by 5 seconds. So that means whenever we attack with our basic attack, which is going to be the Storm Strike, we get to reduce the cooldowns of our trample, earth and bulwark and the boulder. You don't need to connect the attack to an opponent to get the actual bonus. You can just spam out the Storm Strike while even moving, and if it procs the free skill, your cooldowns will get reduced. So this aspect is super important for this build. For my weapon aspect, I have whenever I cast a storm skill, the critical strike damage on my earth skills is increased by 72%. And after casting an earth skill, my crit chance on my storm skill is increased. The second one is not really that important, but that 72% crit damage on our earth skills is what makes this so strong. For my ring again, I have earth skills deal more crit damage to crowd control enemies, which is again straightforward, just more and more damage. Then this is also important. The landslide's earth pillars each strike a second time and deal bonus damage per hit. This is just so much more damage for basically free. All of your landslides just go off twice, which is just insane in my opinion. Then finally on our amulet, the trample skill creates 6 landslides that deal 120% normal damage, and also turns the trample into an earth and nature magic skill. Without this skill, trample isn't that great at all, but with this it's insanely strong. As for the stats, try to get more willpower as it seems to boost all of your skill damage. Get some earth damage, overpower damage, or even damage to slow and crowd control enemies, as all these stats will boost your damage tremendously. And that is basically it for this build. I hope I made it easy for everyone to understand how everything worked, but if you're still unsure, be sure to hit me up in the comment section down below. Best way to go about when playing with this build is constantly use your Storm Strike and your Trample. Your Storm Strike will constantly reduce the cooldowns of your skills, so spam it even if you're just moving around. As soon as your skills are ready, just hit them all. Your Trample is more than enough to take out many of the trash mobs. If you feel like you're completely surrounded, launch your boulder to get the enemies off you. It will give you some breathing room and allow you to move to a better spot to attack. Whenever I'm playing, I always try to launch the trample from a distance as it will block more landslides and therefore cover more area and do more damage. Whenever I see an elite or a tougher enemy, that's when I actually use the main landslide skill, or when I'm fighting a boss. When I'm actually fighting the bosses, I just mash all of my buttons. As soon as the skill is ready, it just launches. Otherwise, the Storm Strike will just keep on landing and proc the vulnerable effect and reducing our cooldowns. Bosses don't last so long at all as your damage is pretty high, and even if you've countered the Butcher, you can take him out pretty easily. Hope you guys enjoyed this build. I will have lots more builds coming for the Druid and other classes as well. Druid is still my favorite class at the moment, so let me know what you guys think of this build. I would love to hear from you all. I will catch you all next time.